All right, so I'm still not guaranteeing that I'm going to play out this game, Game 5 here this evening, this year championship game again for my Hockey Bones project, the fictional six league, taking the players like we did there for the 2005 season, drafting them into six very awesome teams. These being evidently the awesomest, the most awesome of those awesome teams, and they're about to meet here in the final game again. It may or may not be tonight. It will be soon. But I thought what I would do actually, so that I don't spend too much time prior to the game itself, is that I really just go over some numbers here. Last night I started going over this, and it's just really astounding, actually. I guess I should probably zoom out there a little bit. So to me, at least, just really looking, and I used the word astounding for it earlier as well, but I think it applies here. I think it fits here, and I think I need to zoom back there a little further. Okay, um, so this is what we have here, and yes, I decided to go with by the numbers. I know it's a certain other show that's their theme song and everything like that. But so this is going to be game 5 here by the numbers. 46 being the first number that I thought, and you know what? Let me grab the pointer for this as well. Okay, so 46. The significance of 46 actually is that there would be no game 5 if not for, with 46 seconds to go, Jerome McGinley scoring for Rousseau's Gongshow to send it to sudden death, wherein John Madden actually scored the game-winning goal a handful of minutes in. And Alan, if you don't like me saying that, well, allow me to make fun of myself here a little bit too. 2-6. 2-6 stands for my team, the Nature Boys. Their official record in 8 combined games against these two teams, the Green Goblins, in eliminating my team. They were 1-1 against my team during the regular season. They met them twice, and then it was a 4-game playoff series from which they emerged 3-1, 3-1, like 3 wins to 1. And of course, I went 0-2 against Rousseau's Gongshow during the regular season. So both these teams have a very good winning percentage, really good record, winning record against my team. So back to talking about these two teams now, and enough about mine because they've already been eliminated. So far in the postseason, on the road, the Green Goblins are 2-2. So far in the playoffs at home, Rousseau's Gongshow is 2-2. Now, game 1 was a bit of an aberration. Personally, I think that after 4 grueling games against the Nature Boys, I think you just didn't show up in any kind of good condition, really, for game 1 of this series. I'd say that's a write-off. Take a mulligan on it. Do whatever you have to do. The 7-2 blowout in game 1, I think, is hardly at all indicative, and there's evidence of that here as well, of overall how well your team is overall, how well this team, Alan, your team, I'm speaking to you personally, but how well this team, the Green Goblins, is overall. So that 7-2 blowout aside, looking specifically at games 2 to 4, what has brought us to this point, what has led us up to this point? Overall goals, 11-10. Game 2, the final score was 2-1 in favor of the Green Goblins. They alternate home and away. This makes it look like the Goblins have been away all the time, but I don't know. I just thought I'd keep Goblins to the left and Gongshow to the right, because for Game 5, the Gongshow will be at home. They finished ahead of the Goblins in the standings during the regular season. So they will get Game 5 at home. How much of it is an advantage? Well, according to this, these teams are both batting .500, whether they're at home or on the road right now. So there is that. The Green Goblins had fared much better at home. Actually, that overtime loss that Larry had to earn against them just to stay alive in this thing was the Goblins' first defeat of the postseason. They were 3-0 at home going into that game. This being, of course, a couple of best-of-5 series, semis, and final. So anyway, as you can already see here, this is ridiculously close. But in case you're only listening, and that's great and fine too. Games 2 through 4, total goals 11-10. Again, because I digressed there. Game 3, the final score was 2-1 in favor of the Goblins. Game 2. Game 2, the score was 2-1 in favor of the Goblins. Correct myself there in case I said Game 3 by mistake. I meant Game 2. Game 2 was 2-1 final in favor of the Goblins. Game 3 was also won by the Goblins by a final score of 5-4. And Game 4 also ended with a score of 5-4, but it was the Gongshow getting the W, this time in overtime. So after that overtime winner, that has brought about this Game 5. And not only have the goals been close, the shots on goal, and this is where it gets historic. And I know it's on the tabletop, it's not in real life. Okay, fine. But shots on goal, and yes, okay, sometimes when I'm playing a game and I will credit a player with a block shot. I think probably it's about 2 or 3 either side combined over the past few games, so I'm going to give it to you anyway. Overall shots on goal are 90-89 for the Goblins. Oh, so I guess you could argue the Goblins there, they have a hair for goals scored by one, and then up on shots as well. They're just by the most minimal of margins that one can be ahead by. And it isn't as if with these shots on goal, this 90 to 89, this is where it gets even a little more historic and, in my opinion, kind of freakish. All three games, there's been a shot differential of one. So game two, the shots on goal, the final shots on goal were 28-27 for the Green Goblins. In game three, final shots on goal were 27-26 in favor of Rousseau's Gongshow. In game four, which saw a bit of overtime, though as I recall, each team only had one shot in the 5 or so minutes, the 5.5 minutes here that we played of overtime, 36-35 in favor of the Goblins. So this has been a remarkably close and epic series, a titanic tilt, a back and forth, but at the same time, the margins have been so razor thin, things have been so close. So I don't even want to talk about penalties or anything else like that. I mean, we could get into that, but I have already. It's also quite possible, and again, I'm not saying that I'm going to play this out tonight necessarily, but it's also quite possible that through the afternoon, it's sort of in between things, and when I was able to multitask, that I have come up with the lineup, basically, not even the starting lineup, but just the lineup. And so allow me to zoom back in there. This is this is who will be against who. Because I mean, if you're looking there, you see Green Goblins and you see Rousseau's Gongshow. But if you're new to this, not familiar with it, then and just curious about it, then here they are. So these are the respective teams going into Game 5. These are the rosters, their lineups, and so for the Green Goblins. It is the line one is Daniel Briere, Rick Nash, and Pavel Demitra. Line one for Rousseau's Gongshow, Joe Nieuwendyk, who has been the number one center since Sergei Fedorov had a long-term injury and gone for the full season. After that, so Joe Nieuwendyk, Henrik Zetterberg, and Jerome Iginla. Actually, Sergei Fedorov and Daniel Alfredsson both, had the season continued, had there been a game 6, they would be eligible to return in that game. And they were injured like way back in the regular season. Just one of those things that I endeavored to look up. But yeah, Nieuwendyk, Henrik Zetterberg, and Jerome Iginla are the top line. And you might hear me call him Jerry Van Halen from time to time for reasons that I may or may not actually get into during the game itself, but I have in other videos. Mike Modano, who's been really a candidate for MVP in this postseason. Keith Tkachuk and Marcus Naslund comprise line 2 for the Green Goblins, up against Vince. Although these lines, again, they won't necessarily be matched. I won't do 1 versus 1, 2 versus 2. In fact, because Larry is at home, 2 will be playing against 3 as often as possible because Modano's been hot. So Modano, Tkachuk, and Naslund. But line 2 for the Gong Show, it's Vincent Lecavalier, Gary Roberts, and Mark Recchi. So Lecavalier between a couple of veterans. Line 3, Mike Ribeiro, Steve Konowalchuk, and Alexei Kovalev for the Green Goblins. And grab the pointer again. Probably not better than looking at my fingers if you're watching. John Madden, Alan McCauley, and Miroslav Shatan, who was originally a Green Goblin and was, let's say, cut toward the end of training camp there in preseason, replaced with Steve Konowalchuk. So Miro Shatan figures back into this here in the final. Signed an injury relief. Yes, you can do that in this competition because who was it? Marian Gaborik was gone for the playoffs. So Shatan is in Gaborik's place. A lot of injury here, but at the same time, everything that the Green Goblins that I've showed already that they've accomplished in the postseason, a good chunk of that was done without Chris Pronger, the number 1 overall draft pick in our league, in the playoffs. I mean, he was gone for the first 6 games of the postseason and a couple of best of 5 series. That's significant. So, but I guess you had to go to the blue line. Oh, the 10th forward. So I have like an injury relief / special teams, kind of a 10th forward that you can use. And it's going to be Tomo Ruutu again, not Jean-Pierre Dumont, but Tomo Ruutu is going to be back in for the Gong Show. And Ziggy Palffy is going to be in the lineup again, where he's been for most of the postseason for the Green Goblins. The top blue line pairings. This has been changed here a little bit for the Green Goblins. It's been a little more static, at least since Pronger's return for the Goblins. So there has been one change. Hopefully, I meant to say Gong Show there moments before I meant to say. But back to the Goblins. So Chris Pronger, Sergei Gonchar, that's the top pairing. Danny Markov and Matthew Schneider, that's the second pairing. And then Craig Rivet. In for the injured Nick Boynton. Nick Boynton, he is injured and gone for 1 game. And of course, there is only 1 game remaining in this thing. So Boynton's gone for the season. So it's going to be Craig Rivet in here stepping in slot number 5. Craig Rivet, who incidentally did also play for the Gongshow and actually trolled me pretty hard given what I said in a video prior to this whole thing getting going, when I had just the sheets of cards printed and fresh, hadn't even cut them yet, brought them back from the print shop, and I was talking about Craig Rivet and talking about how when I was a kid playing driveway ball hockey with friends and mocking whenever I'd shank it, I'd pretend that I was Craig Rivet, based again on when Craig Rivet was just very wet. I'm referring to a very wet behind the ears, green, no pun intended, Craig Rivet, who had just been called up to the NHL, and some awkwardness there in his first game or so. He ended up being a very outstanding defensive defenseman, of course, in the NHL for numerous seasons. But anyway, over to the Gongshow's blue line. How do I segue out of that? Matthias Olin, Rob Blake, Mike Rathje, and Kim Janssen. Kim Janssen's coming in place of the penalty-prone Adam Foote, now that Janssen, who was out for a couple of games, is due to return. So both these teams have had to battle through injury and absorb their losses and make replacements, sufficient replacements where need be. And the last of those replacements, actually, that I'll get to in this is Martin Skula, who was brought in actually because Sandis Ozolinsh was wounded and out for the playoffs. Game 2, actually, Allen, down by a game, just went full Bash Brothers on the Gongshow's lineup there. Game 2 was a pretty interesting one, reminiscent of the game, actually, the return match when Allen beat up Ken's team during the regular season. So it can be a pugnacious bunch, a pugnacious pack. Nash has gotten into it with both Iginla and Nieuwendyk in the course of this series and the earlier games that have transpired. But finally, of course, I'd be remiss not to mention goaltending. Definitely last, but definitely not least. Martin Brodeur will get the start. Dan Cloutier will be in backup, where he's not seen any time since midseason. But Kevin Weeks had a shaky fill-in assignment there, mid-game 1 blowout. And so again, I go back to, okay, well, what if this is actually real? I feel like even though Brodeur was chasing the crease early, the backup goaltender would have a bit of a shorter leash than the starter. And so having an eligible, capable third, on paper at least, on card at least, like Dan Cloutier, you probably come back to him, try to change your luck up a little bit if need be. But Brodeur's been, do I even need to say that Martin Brodeur in 2005, because this is for the 2005 set, has been nothing short of stellar in the postseason. Similarly, Kari Lehtinen, you got to remember, again, this is a circa 2005, criminally underrated, that's a new word, criminally underrated, Kari Lehtinen, I got to stop with that suffix, Donkey's cousin, no. So Kari Lehtinen has just been ridiculously underrated, I think. My opinion, of course. I'm a Lehtinen fan in his career. And so needless to say, it's been quite pleasing to me to see that Lehtinen has done quite well in this competition. And then the Boulan wall, Nikolai Havibulin in there backing him up. Boulan, who actually started the playoffs. And I might have even remarked to Larry at the time, no Lehtinen? You're not going to start Lehtinen? And I swear it was how the dice dropped. It wasn't me. It was how the dice dropped from my hands. Havibulin ended up exiting. I can't even remember now. I think I'm going back to a previous round. That's right. Sorry, I'm getting my rounds mixed up now. Havibulin had an early exit in the semifinal, and Lehtinen has taken over and been there since. So anyway, I think that as much as possible, I'm good to go. I have no idea what the next few hours are going to bring. I have to actually get back. Now I have to get back to work in like a few minutes. Goodness, I hope I'm not late. But no, I don't think I am. But yeah, I just wanted to go back through some things again, go through the lineups, and just kind of really try to do like a pregame show proper, so that tonight, again, even if I am just feeling a bit tired, I can just sort of turn it on and go through the motions and roll the dice. And I'm quite confident that, again, if I do it tonight over here my time, again, I'm not going to commit to it necessarily, depending what happens the next few hours. But if I feel like I'm good to go at all this evening, then I can just kind of turn it on and just go and let the adrenaline carry me and let the dice and cards carry me, the fantastic game that Hockey Bones is, my favorite game of all time, and then just and just go from there. Like I said, that will carry me until I have the adrenaline, the energy to match and to meet that. And so everything that I've said so far, particularly about games 2 through 4, sorry that I smudged your 36 there. Oh, you can't see that now because it's zoomed in. That's saying nothing of Game 5. There is no guarantees that Game 5 will be the epic kind of showdown that the past 3 have been. Of course, as you know, if you're familiar enough with tabletop hockey, once the dice drop, anything can happen. That's one of many, many things that I do really appreciate about the game Hockey Bones. But again, I really have to get going on this one. So good luck to both teams. In case I don't make a point to say it enough during the game, good luck to both teams. And I will talk a little bit pre-game as well about some. It's come to my attention that some celebrities will be in attendance for this game, and so I'll try to get to that in the little pre-game that I do before actually rolling out this game when I do it. So, all right, thanks for checking this out. Bye for now.